Hello, everybody, and welcome. Здравствуйте, Dobre Utra, and salut les boys. J'espère que tout va bien au Québec et vous me manquez beaucoup et j'espère que tout va bien. So yeah, welcome to the first live stream. If you guys want to use the Shekel chat and ask me a question on the entropy, the link is in the description. And yeah, I think we're just gonna get right to it. And there's a lot of great questions. Uh, there's a lot of stuff in this. It's gonna be pretty long and pretty deep. So we're gonna start with. Well, I think we should start with uh, something from the Book of Psalms, and I think this is very, I think this really fits what's going on in the world right now. And that's why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their bands asunder, and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, the Lord shall have them in derision. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure. Yet I have set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree, the Lord has said unto me, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron, thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings, be instructed, O you judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and ye perish from the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. So we're going to start with, I guess, two questions. Not so much a question. And you could tell a lot just by looking at their names. And death to Abrahamism. This I can't blame the guy for having a name like this. It says a lot, and this is really also how I felt when I was first coming into Christianity. Before, I used to spend a lot of my time actually like unconverting Christians. Back when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I just had this absolute hatred for Christianity, the church, and I just thought Christians were the dumbest people on the planet. And I really became a Christian in my attempt to destroy Christianity. And the more I started studying the Bible, I just kind of realized that, well, either these people aren't Christians or, this isn't the Bible. Something's wrong here. And so you're going to have a lot of these pagans and these guys that just want nothing to do with desert religions, right? So here in his thing, you could see, like, what if these stories are written and rewritten to make better sense over time, like getting better with practice, to convince us of fables as if they are true, to get us away from trusting the fables our forefathers had, which had nothing to do with the Middle Eastern tribes. And the guy underneath, Severus Floki, you can again tell by his name, he's probably very much a pagan, wants nothing to do with desert religions, and he's not convinced on I guess the video I made on the Danes and kind of showing how the religions kind of push westward. And he's kind of saying that I'm just guessing etymology. No, I wasn't just guessing etymology. I'm combining history with etymology with mythology, and you could say the great colonization and expansion westward. So I don't blame anyone for, especially like these pagan guys. I had a lot of pagan friends. When I was part of the nationalist group in Quebec, we were really divided into three parties. You had the nationalist, you had the pagan nationalists, you had the Christian nationalists, and you had the atheist nationalists. And while we all came together under nationalism, we had our internal fighting within the group. So let's just kind of put some things into perspective here. And we're going to look at Europa, this name. What does it mean? Who is Europa? Why are we Europeans? Okay. And I'm going to say that you cannot separate European religion or history from the East. And we're going to see that it all pushes from the East. Okay. The Caucasians come from the Caucasian Mountains right above, literally where the Middle East really meets into Europe. Okay. So it's not so simple. And the first thing I want to state is pagan means peasant. Okay. So when you say I'm a pagan, it's not what you think. So the next thing is, like, Christianity was the original peasant religion of Rome. If you go back to before Constantine and when the Romans adopted, they kind of merged to end a civil war. Rome was in a civil war between the pagan half and the Christian half, and when Constantine came to power, you have the establishment of the Roman churches. And this is really a political move, and it was really genius by Constantine. And what they did is they fused paganism, or like polytheism, the Roman traditions, the European traditions, with Christianity. And a lot of Christians had a problem with this. A lot of the polytheists had a problem with this, but the majority kind of adopted it, and that kind of became the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church today. So it's really polytheists versus monotheists, and that's so this word pagan, just understand what it means, and understand that most religions are henotheistic or henotheistic, which is the mixture really of polytheism and monotheism. Okay, a henotheist generally believe in a superior god, but then they acknowledge a bunch of demigods or half-human gods and gods underneath this superior god. And you're going to see that this is what Christians believe in today, and it's not really monotheism, and we're going to cover that. So we're going to look at the sons of Noah, and when you look at the three dominant, you could say, Caucasian races, which were the Egyptians, the Semites, and the Aryans, the Indo-Europeans, the Japhites in the Bible. And you can see the Japhite, the Aryan expansion. The Aryans really went from Ireland, and we're going to see they maybe to India, but we're going to see they probably went a little further. And the Bible really wants us focusing on these three sons of Noah, who the ark landed on the Caucasian Mountains. Okay, that's a very fascinating thing, and this is where all these cultures kind of come into conflict. Okay, the Middle East is a very interesting place, and you're not going to be able to escape it because the Aryans are there too. Now the Bible says that God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Now this is really fascinating because the Japhites, the Aryans, were enlarged, and when we examine history, you're going to see that it's really a conflict between the Semites and the Aryans. This is really what really, when we look at recorded history from the time of Noah and on, it's this conflict between Aryans and Semites, and you're not going to get away from it. Now, the Egyptians are a very special group, and they didn't really leave Egypt, not so much. They conquered a little bit outside, and the reason for that is their religion hindered them, and the Nile River made them extremely lazy. The way that the Egyptians crafted boats, they had this Nile River that, the monsoon season would come and the two Nile rivers would connect, and every year the new rich soil would come in and just flood Egypt, and the Egyptians never really had to fertilize. The Nile would just do it for them. The Nile was easy to navigate by boat. You can just go up and down, and Egyptians considered Egyptian land so holy that Egyptians didn't like dying outside of Egypt. They thought it was bad. They thought you couldn't even maybe be resurrected if you died outside of Egypt. So Egyptian culture really, and the terrain made them, I don't want to say lazy, but it made them, they didn't want to leave Egypt. So this is why the Semites and the Aryans seem to be conquerors, and they colonized where the Egyptians didn't. So again, the Aryan expansion, I mean, you could say from Ireland to India, but it goes farther than that. We've got now the Aryans buried in China, the Tarim mummies. They found a pyramid in China, and it was kept under wraps for a long time. because it's fascinating because when does Chinese civilization really begin? And maybe about 2000 BC, where they really started becoming civilized. And this would match the time Noah's children would have, the Semite or the Aryans, sorry, the Japhites would have actually hit China and migrated that far. And then you probably had a mixture of Aryans getting into China, and then you kind of have the rise of Chinese civilization. So the Aryans went as far as China, and this is stuff we're just uncovering now. So this is very interesting stuff. So again, when we look at the sons of Noah in our modern world, what I found was super fascinating was our alphabet really comes from Egypt. This phonetic system where every symbol is a sound, and when you put the sounds together, they form words. And this is Egyptian, and this is, or the son of Cam, who is one of Noah's sons, and the original name of Egypt is Kemet. And our languages, though, are Aryan, and these are from the Japhites, right? So now we're going to have a Semitic script, though. We're going to have Hebrews who used the Egyptian alphabet. They stole the alphabet system, they used it from the Egyptians, and then they applied their own script to it, and this became English. So stop and really think about what we're looking at here. You're looking at an Egyptian alphabet, an Aryan language, but written in a Semitic script, and this really brings the three sons of Noah in our modern world back together. And this isn't talked about in schools. Like I remember just looking at this and just being absolutely shocked. And even if you don't want to believe the story in the Bible, if you don't want to believe the Bible at all, at least, the very least what you can do is you can use the Bible as a parable. It's really one giant parable of how you can memorize ancient history. And that's what I think is very interesting. So for me, it's not, if you don't want to believe in the Bible, you don't want to believe in the stories, but you're not going to really be able to deny how it's really a parable of history. And if you just memorize these stories, you're going to be able to memorize so much of ancient history. So again, the sons of Noah really all comes down to this, and we are coming back to the Middle East, to this merging point of where the Egyptians, the Semites, and the Aryans really come from and collide. And I don't really think there's a way to get around that. Now, when it comes to Europa, and this kind of it's you have these pagan Europeans. They want to go back to polytheist traditions, and no desert religions or anything like that. Well, according to Herodotus, so you have an Aryan Greek, the father of history, the oldest source we have, really. And what he's saying is that Europa was a Phoenician princess. And Phoenicia isn't just Lebanon. Phoenicia could have been as far as Syria to Israel. Even Edom, Idumea in the south, right? So to say, as I'm a European, and to not acknowledge, like, what does that mean? Well, Europe, Europa, according to the oldest Greek historian, really, Europe is a Phoenician princess, so she comes from one of these desert religions. So I don't know how these polytheists, these pagan Europeans who are so anti-desert religion, and yet from the alphabet to the script we're using to communicate in, to the name Europe itself, it all comes from the Middle East. It all starts in the Levant. It all comes from Egypt and Mesopotamia. So that's just something I'd like to point out, and we shouldn't be fighting about this. But it is what it is, right? So I don't know how you can separate Europe from the Middle East, because down to the name European, it all starts there, right? So this is what it is, right? The Levant there, that whole purple section, that is Phoenicia. That is what the Greeks considered Phoenicia, that whole area. And when you have the Semites pushing out of there, establishing Carthage, and Carthage really, you got to think about Rome, that Rome became the Western world power after it defeated the Semites from Israel and Lebanon and Syria who founded Carthage, and Rome came to supremacy um, when they defeated Carthage, and they absorbed their technology and absorbed their style of their system of warfare, and the Carthaginians really sharpened Rome and helped them become this unstoppable military force. So I don't quite get how you can detach European history, even if you go back to the Roman myths of how Rome was founded. The Romans went from Troy to Carthage and then into Rome. So, anyways, that's what I wanted to say about that. So the next thing we're going to move to is the next couple of questions. There's a lot of questions. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through them all, but oh, my friend Anonymous. So he's asking here, what are my thoughts on George Rockwell? And I'm going to try to kill two birds with one stone here, and that is, wait, or this guy's kind of shocked that am I Canadian or am I just visiting? This was on my Niagara Falls video on COVID, and this comes up a lot. I guess because the way that I speak, I grew up most of my life like on the U.S. border, so I lived in Niagara Falls for a long time and just southern Ontario, and so I definitely sound I'm very very close with Americans, grew up with them, and but I'm technically not Canadian. I'm technically not from the United States. So and me and George Rockwell actually share common heritage. So we're descended from the same people. So I'm gonna try to kill two birds with one stone. So if you don't know who George Lincoln Rockwell is, he was really the leader of the Nazi Party in the United States. He served in the U.S. Navy, and um, he wrote a lot of books, and I do recommend you read some of them. Really, you can pick up any one of his books. What I like about him, and it's kind of frightening, is he's in the 50s. He's really talking about the 50s and the 60s, and when he's writing, and he's describing what's going on in New York City during this time, and you never would have believed the things going on in the theaters. You'd never believe the degeneracy. It's really Weimar Germany. It's very much the stuff we're seeing right now, the level of degeneracy, but it was going on in small pockets in in the United States. And George Rockwell does a really good job. I was just shocked when I started reading his books, and as he's describing what was going on in America uh, during this time. I had no idea. You think 50s, 60s, very wholesome. No, the Jewish theaters, and he's pointing out that it is all Jewish theaters, Jewish media, Jewish literature, and he doesn't hold his punches. So I really have a lot of respect for him. The thing I clashed with him on is he was an atheist, as far as I know. Um, and to me, to be American, to be European, I think we were once we're very godly people, and I think when we detach ourselves from God, even if you're looking at the Greeks or the Romans, we've always had a tradition as Europeans to to believe in the gods and and to be to hold things sacred, and we've kind of lost that. And I think once we lose God, is really when our countries go to hell. So that's the one thing I don't like about him is he's an atheist, but he's a very interesting man. And if you haven't read any of his books, like you can pick up any one of his books, and he's going to give you a very like interesting. He's going to put you in for instance maybe New York City. He's going to draw the picture of what's going on during those times, and it's frightening. It's absolutely frightening. So he is Acadian. His mother was Acadian, and my mother is also Acadian. And most people don't know who the Acadians are. And there's only maybe just over 1 million of us, so we're very, very small people. And we come from really eastern Canada and parts of Maine, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia area. And we actually have a very sad history. And back in the day, see another thing, a history lesson here. North America was very French. It was the odds that England would come to power and take North America from the French is actually pretty mind-blowing history. So my ancestors were French on my mother's side, and we colonized in Canada at late 1500s, early 1600s. So my family, my mother's family, they're on the first censuses. They're my family are the original like the original founders of New France. And the biggest reason, if you look at the map, why France actually did so well in the conquest, you see that the red is New England, and the English were actually being prevented from pushing further west because of the mountain range there. The Appalachian Mountains were stopping them from pushing, and they had to go around them, while the French had the waterways, and they were able to come in through the St. Lawrence and the city of Detroit, right? That's actually a French word, Détroit. It means the strait. It means where the water's kind of narrow. That's a French word. And Detroit is famous for the car plants, that area. And the guy who discovered it, Detroit, was a guy named Cadillac, and that's where we get the word Cadillac from. And it was all French, and then the English took it over, and the Acadians were expelled. And my ancestors were a lot of them were deported. Families were torn apart. Imagine having your children ripped from you. And the English won in a very treacherous way. They pretty much went after the children. The Acadian, the French men were gathering up to fight, and from what I read, the English just didn't go after the men. The men kind of left their women and children unguarded, thinking that the English would fight toe to toe. And when the men came around, the English apparently had all the children and women held hostage, and the men just surrendered. So we were expelled, and this is one of the darkest moments in Canadian history, I'd say. And there's no reparations for us. The right now we got to fork out all this money to the natives and the Americans with the blacks, and it's all this stuff. But I mean, if you study what happened to the Acadians, it's pretty mind blowing. So if you're what remains of Acadia or the Cajuns in Louisiana. So if you're Cajun, you're also an Acadian, and so this is what I am. I'm not really Canadian. I'm not from the United States. I'm this tiny little people that no one in the world really knows exists. And so is George Lincoln Rockwell. So my mother is French Canadian, and with French Canadian, you're going to have Irish. So we're kind of just a mix. And my father is Russian Jew and also Austrian. My one Jewish family name is Austrian. My other one is it's actually Lithuanian, but my family lived in Russia for a couple hundred years, so we're actually Russian Jews. And that's it. So that's my ancestry. So I hope that answers that question. Nike Go or Nike, I'm not sure which one you go. Okay, so she's kind of blasting me here because of a video. I think it's my Not So Chosen People Part 6, the Babylon one, and she says she's asked me what denomination am I. If you're neither Catholic nor Protestant, okay. And she's kind of mad at me because she didn't like how I downplayed Abraham's works and alluded to faith alone. And this is now a big Christian argument. Is it faith? Is it works? Is it grace? What is salvation based on? It's not that I'm downplaying Abraham and the works, okay? And we're just going to go to the scriptures here. And the Apostle Paul says, "For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is a gift from God, not of works, lest any man should boast." So no, it is by grace. Grace is the main thing. It's what God does through us. It's God who is the author of history. God is the author of our lives. God is in control. But I do fully agree with you. Now we come to James. Even so faith, if it has not works, is dead, being alone. Yea, a man may say, Thou hast faith, and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show thee my faith by my works. And this is bang on. I will say that I've actually converted more people to Christianity through my works and my actions than I have by just being some loudmouth who thinks he knows everything. Actions do speak a lot louder than words, and you can't downplay the work element. You will, if you are just that guy that everyone wants to be around, you're the first guy to volunteer, you get, you're the first guy on the job, you're always helping people, you're always sacrificing for people. Um, they remember that, it ingrains in them, and they become, and they want to know what's up with this guy. Why does this guy do these things for people? Why does he go out of his way? And you can't downplay the works thing. I've definitely converted more people to Christianity through my actions than I have through, just trying to be a know-it-all. So I totally agree with you. I'm not. My point in that video was actually to illustrate that the teachings of Paul and Christ already existed in Abraham. I wasn't downplaying the works thing. I was just making a different point. So this is it. Now, are you an Orthodox Christian? And what denomination am I? And this is a tough, well, I don't even know. This is, now we're going to come back to the pagans, right? So which is the true church, right? Is it the Orthodox Church? Is it the Catholic Church? Is it the Church of England? And now, this is what Christians have to consider when dealing with the polytheist pagans: is who shed more blood, European blood, the communists or the churches? And this is where the pagans hate us. The polytheists hate us because the churches, in my opinion, have probably killed more Europeans fighting over nonsense than the communists. If not, it's probably close. Okay. And I'll be honest with you, I would much rather get shot in the head by a communist than by some guy professing to be a Christian and killing me because I do the cross the opposite way, or what church am I going to? Something like this, something so stupid that you can forsake the basic core teachings of Christ and shoot a fellow Christian. So this is something that we have to keep in mind. So I am none of these. I'm gonna pull the Paul card here, and this is what Paul says. Now this I say, that every one of you saith, I am of Paul, and I am of Apollos, and I of Cephas, and I of Christ. Is Christ divided? Was Paul crucified for you, or were ye baptized in the name of Paul? I thank God that I baptized none of you, but Crispus and Gaius, lest any should say that I had baptized in my own name. So, is Christ divided? And why are you saying, oh, well, I'm baptized in the Catholic Church, and I'm baptized in the Orthodox Church, and Luther baptized me? And here's Paul saying, what is wrong with you people? Is Christ divided? And so this is something we have to kind of address and talk about, especially when we're dealing with the polytheistic guys, because they're looking at European history and they're pissed because they're like, well, who's killed more people, the communists or the Christians, the so-called churches, right? So I'm none of these. I'm going to pull the Jesus card now. And when Jesus was in front of Pontius Pilate, Jesus answered and said, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then my servants fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now is my kingdom not from hence. Okay, so that's my answer to you. My church isn't on earth. My kingdom is not of this world. I follow Christ, and that's it. I will not bow down to the Pope. I will not bow down to the Orthodox Church. I will not bow down to the Church of England. None of them. Okay, I serve God and Christ alone, and my church is not of this world. And we're going to quote a very wise man here, and I really hope that everyone can get behind this, and that is, we are a people of different religions, but we are one. Which faith conquers the other is not the question. Rather, the question is whether Christianity stands or falls. We tolerate no one in our ranks who attacks the ideas of Christianity. In fact, our movement is Christian. We are filled with a desire for Catholics and Protestants to discover one another in the deep distress of our own people. And that's what I would say to Christians today. You need to put your petty little differences aside. We don't have time for infighting, and we actually need to set a better example for these polytheistic guys to get them on our side. All right. Pharisees, more like heresies. Am I right? Okay, I don't know if this is a pun, a joke. I see it as a pun, right? Pharisees. Am I right? Right? I think he's saying Amorites, right? Like the enemies of Israel, the Amorites. If so, this is really funny. I think the best jokes are bad jokes. It's kind of like Nicolas Cage, right? Is he a bad actor? Is he a good actor? Is he so bad that he's good or so good that he's bad? I don't know, but I think that's a pun. So um, Matt Roden says to me, "You are a breath of fresh air. Finally, someone who understands the Book of Daniel and Revelation. I also enjoyed the music you play at the beginning of the video." Yeah, that's a very very traditional Jewish song. It's probably sung at least twice on the Sabbath in synagogues by Jews. So I put that there just to, it's something Jews would recognize. Yeah, the Book of Daniel, Book of Revelation, man, these are tough books to go through, but I think the secret is studying secular history, and then these books kind of come to light. Uh, Eric Toro, I just wanted to say, I wanted to apologize to you because you leave all these great comments, and I've never once commented to you or thanked you. So I've always felt really bad, so I thought I would thank you here and thank you for all your comments and stuff. And I really apologize for not messaging you, or I do give you thumbs up. And anyways, just wanted to say thanks. Anonymous, okay, how do you explain the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact? Well, I'm not sure what's really to explain there. So when the USSR, the Soviet Union, and the National Socialists in Germany, they partitioned Europe, they divided it, and they divided Poland. And I think what was happening here was the Soviet Union were absolutely they were planning an all-out invasion of Germany, and the Germans knew this. So while this was a pact that they both made to partition Europe, and these are the two powers now of Europe, and this is such a genius move by Hitler because it buys him time. He knows there's a war coming. They know that the Soviets are placing cannons and tanks and getting ready for invasion. And at the same time, this is what's the amazing thing. And this really puts all of World War II into question. Britain and France only declared war on Hitler. Now stop and think about that. What was the point of World War II? It was to free Poland, right? Poland was divided between the Soviets and the Germans. So this is why we went to war, to liberate Poland. And what happens when the USSR takes half of Poland and Hitler takes the other half? Well, France and Britain declare war on him. They didn't declare war on the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union was built by them, funded by them. They built the Soviet Union. There's no question that the bankers, and they were Jews, built the Soviet Union and overthrew the Tsar. And when there's a lot of great books on this, and I do actually recommend that you get the memoir of Peter Wrangel, the last commander of the Russian army, the White Russian army fighting the Soviets. He's very Hitler-esque. If you don't know who Peter Wrangel is, I would say he's on the same level of Hitler for bravery, for his achievements in battle, his wisdom, his accomplishments, his bravery. Peter Wrangel is one of the bravest men that I've ever read about, and he really shines a light on what happened in Russia. And there's no question that Britain and France, as well as bankers from the United States, funded the Soviet Union. So here, again, Poland was never freed, right? Now, why did World War II happen? Well, today it was to stop the Holocaust. It was to save the Jews. That's not what World War II was about. World War II was to free Poland. Britain and France declared war on one group, but didn't. And what did that tell? It told the Germans exactly what they thought. Okay, the Germans believed that Britain and France were also in alliance, a secret alliance with the Soviet Union, helping them prepare for an invasion on Germany. And he was right, and you can see it here. So that's why I like the Ribbentrop Pact, because it shows you that Britain had no intentions of freeing Poland. Poland was just used and abused. Like Britain really just used them as a whore to start this war. And at the end of the war, was Poland freed? Was Poland ever freed? No. Poland was enslaved to the Soviet Union. They were just destroyed, and they were never freed. So all of World War II was for nothing. Poland was never freed. Somehow the Allies won the war, but they never freed Poland. So this is right. This is such an important part. So this really shines a light. I really like this pact because I think it was a genius move by Hitler. It bought him time. He knew war was coming, and then he was able to see who his enemies really were. They all revealed their colors. This is a question that I got not that long ago. And this is going to tie into, I guess, race mixing in the Bible. And this is, so the message here is you can murder a Jew and get away with it as long as you're black and high. I recently began questioning Christianity and seeing Judaism as the origin of it. But I'm certain even Christianity commands pro-immigrant policy, be friendly to the foreigner, for you were once a foreigner, and all that. Thoughts on Catholic Christians helping refugees? Okay, the Catholic Church, number one, is a political. It's like a political. They're their own government. Okay, they're their own set of rules. Are you a Catholic first? Are you an American first? That's going to vary from Catholic to Catholic. The Catholics are trying to get the Catholics are converting, right? They go to Africa. They do so. So the Catholic Church doesn't care what race you are, and even we shouldn't care in the sense that I would rather live next to a community of black Christians than a bunch of just black gangsters, right? I'd rather that. If I had to choose, well, I'd rather be living around, whatever their ethnicity is. I'd rather that they have Christian morality. So, no, the Bible's actually very not pro race mixing at all. And we're gonna kind of look. This could really be a whole discussion as it is, but the Bible gives many warnings against race mixing. It doesn't mean treat other races poorly. If anything, no, we should be kind to all people, but we shouldn't tolerate, we shouldn't let them, there's a difference between an immigrant who comes to your country because he wants to be like you versus these immigrants who are coming in who are telling us that we have to accept them and their cultures that obviously didn't work for them in their countries, okay? So, no, we're going to look at so here we have in Genesis when it comes to Isaac, and I will make thee swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of the earth, that thou shalt not take a wife unto my son of the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell, but thou shalt go unto my country, to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son Isaac. So here we have the mother of Isaac, and she's just not gonna let her son marry one of these Canaanite girls because you do not want that culture coming into your home. You're much better off marrying your children and even yourself off to people more more connected to you, obviously. And race mixing causes problems. Like I'm a half Jew, I'm a half Aryan, and let me tell you, I don't belong in either camp. The Aryans don't accept me, and the Jews don't accept me. So I'm on my own, and it's not fun to not be welcome by either one of your tribes because they don't really recognize you as one of them. So as a race mixed guy, even though I'm blonde hair, blue eyes, when I'm honest about my backgrounds, no, it's you don't belong in any world. So I wouldn't really want that for people. But at the same time, there is an exception. There is a biblical exception here, and I think it's in the book of Ruth. And this is to me is one of the most beautiful stories in the Bible. And here we have a Moabitess, so a girl from a neighboring Israelite tribe. The nephew of Abraham populated this region, and here we have. And Ruth said, "Entreat me not to leave thee." And she's talking to her mother-in-law. and it's because her husband just died. They have nothing. It's just women right now, and her mother-in-law is telling her to leave, and Ruth won't go. Okay, and she says, "Or return from following after thee, for whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge, and thy people shall be my people, and thy God shall be my God. Where thou diest, will I die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me." So, to me, this is a woman who comes from a neighboring culture, neighboring tribe. Would be equivalent to a Canaanite, and um, and this girl became more Israelite than any Israelite in Israel. This woman, and this would be the great grandmother of King David. So she's in the lineage. So Jesus is descended from her, and so when would I say race mixing comes into play? It would have to be a very special person who's willing to sacrifice everything they have for your people. And I do think that some of the strongest fighters for the Western world will actually very well could be immigrants.